All right, guys, it's coin hunting season, and I hope you guys are taking part of it because, well, we got brand new 2024 coins that are currently out in circulation. People are doing stuff with that. Good to see. The coin show circuit has exploded, so we are kind of like heading into the best part of the year, I would say, between now and Memorial Day. Man, the show scene is hopping. It's a great opportunity to go to these shows and cherry pick some really nice stuff, varieties, errors, key dates that maybe have fallen through the cracks of some of these dealers. There's a lot of great opportunity here, folks, that if you wanted to and you put in a little bit of the work, then you can find some pretty epic stuff to add to your collection and possibly resell. All right. And that's kind of the main driver of the Pocket Change Market Report. Do this 2 times a week. That's how busy this part of e-commerce is right now. Now, a lot of the sales, we generally take a look at eBay, but you could say that there are other ways that you could sell some of these coins. Selling on Facebook coin groups is another great way. And it's just been revealed to me from someone I had talked to through one of my consultations that USA Coin Book is another great option. You know, if you're not a fan of eBay and you want to do something else other than eBay, USA Coin Book is another great option, I would say. I've never personally done it, but he's had quite a bit of success doing that. In no short order, you're going to find some of these coins going through circulation. There's a lot of big errors out there that have come out of the woodwork just in the last 6-7 years. And folks, they are still circulating out there to this day. We're going to highlight a few of those. Okay, and then the big varieties you can find throughout the last 50 or 60 years of coins that still circulate to this day. One of our big coins this week, 1972 Lincoln Memorial Cent Double to Die. And keep in mind, there's a good 10 of them that you could find that are all attributed in the Cherry Picker's Guide. They're all quite valuable, but the number one, man, this thing is gorgeous. And it just gives you a general idea of what's out there. Kind of like a small sample size. Not to mention all the other coins on the list that really add up to thousands of dollars in realized sales. So we of course have a couple of ground rules that maybe you guys may or may not be aware of. Grading. I don't like to talk about grading in this video for the mere reason that the coins sell for themselves. Okay, they speak for themselves. There's just no need to spend that expensive money to try and grade any of these coins. Just keep them the way they are. If you need to sell them, take some pretty good pictures. Your iPhone or Android device, especially the later models, does a really good job at taking clear, concise photos of your coins. And second of all right, the photos. We talked about the photos. We're going to look at the original photos from the listing. So you're going to get the best and the worst. Okay, I'm happy to announce to a lot of you that struggle in the photography department of things that are very small and tiny. That bar is set really low. All right, so, if you could take a couple decent pictures and you know what you have and how to sell it, then you're going to do really well. All right. So without further ado, time to get your coin roll hunting on, time to get your show circuit cherry picking on. Let's go ahead and dive right into this list for this Wednesday. Thank you guys again for all of your views and support. Don't forget to share, subscribe, like the video. All of this extra support will go a long way in ensuring I do more quality videos for you. All right. So we do have a couple, we're going to kind of lead things off here with a couple, relatively minor off-center struck coins. We have a 1981p Washington quarter. It's actually in really nice shape, and it's nothing too crazy. It's probably off-center by 8%, somewhere around there. Nothing too crazy. Again, I've had a few people ask, well, is this realistic to find and change? Well, yeah, I found a few of them myself. Not to mention some of the other major errors that make a coin a lot bigger, like broad stroke errors is another one, and a few others. I found all of these over the course of many, many years of searching. And, the amount of work you put in it will be the amount of, kind of rewards that you get back from it. So if you're out there, you just go through like a few rolls of pennies, thinking that you're going to hit it big, it's worth a shot, but, you have to temper your expectations and just do the hunt. Because you never know what you're going to find. Of course, the more coin that you go through, some big guys like Dig and Dave and a few others that go through tens of thousands of coin every month. I mean, they have found some pretty big things, out there. And it's all part of the game, and it's all part of the hustle. So when you put that work in, you can find things like an off-center struck 1981p Washington quarter. So this one right here, these are generally collected by date. So there are collectors that want just off-center errors of Washington quarters, so they're going to do a date run. So this one right here would be a pretty decent candidate, although there are folks that want much larger spreads of off-center. This one ended up selling for $12.99. Keeping in mind that it is a 25-cent coin for the initial investment, and to sell it for more than 40 times face, that's not too bad. But it does get better. Check out this one here, 1983p Washington quarter. This one right here is off-center by a lot more, probably 10 to 12%. A little bit more dramatic when it's more off-center. You can see more of the devices cut off, and that's what makes these very attractive. Now, I've come across these at coin shops, and coin shops generally, they don't like to dabble in mint errors for whatever reason. Maybe it's just too slow of a sell for them. And this is where you could kind of swoop in and make a great deal. I personally like to deal in bulk, so if I go to a coin shop, hey, what are you going to do for me if I buy like 6 of these? And you do come across them. You do come across dealers that's willing to wheel and deal, and that's where you can take advantage of this. So this one right here sold for $29.99. A pretty decent sale for a coin that, does pop up quite frequently in off-center type of errors or broad strike situations. Again, these happen when they're struck out of collar. Maybe the collar malfunctioned, and the planchet didn't quite seat correctly in the striking chamber, especially when that collar is not engaged. The collar is what keeps the coin in place during the strike. Think of it as kind of like a donut, where the coin goes right down the middle in the hole, and when it strikes, it stays within that parameters of whatever the size of the coin is. The next one that we have here, another out of collar off-center strike on a Roosevelt dime this time. Now, I've noticed here recently, within the last few months, that Roosevelt dime errors all of a sudden are exploding. I don't get it. Exploding in a sense that they're selling for a lot more money compared to their counterparts like Lincoln cents, nickels, quarters. It's quite interesting. And it's always good to see kind of like this evolution in the market where certain things kind of like begin to trend up, and that just really shows kind of the movement in the market, but also tells a tale like, there's more people that are trying to, find something else to do or to collect. So they'll look at Roosevelt dimes. So this one's quite a bit off center, probably by like 80%, 85%, somewhere around there. The coin's in pretty decent shape. And this particular one ended up selling for $23.20. Whereas a comparable, say, Lincoln cent of the same off-center spread will probably sell for about $15. Especially when they don't have a readable date on there. That's what really suppresses the value of these type of errors. This is the big one right here, coins and cards. They are continuously finding some of these big, huge varieties that we all dream to find. And again, it's all in volume. The more that you search through, the more your chances are that you're going to find something like the 1972 doubled die obverse FS101. Now, they sold quite a few of these. Just in the last 12 months, I've probably counted maybe 15 or so of the 72 FS101s that they've sold at public auction, and they're all circulated. Which means they came out of change. So this one right here, I would say is a nice, like either kind of like upper end about uncirculated red brown or a lower end mid state. All right. But when you look at, say, In God We Trust, Liberty, the date, Lincoln's profile, his jacket, you can see just a tremendous amount of doubling here, coming from the working hub to the working die. There's a little bit of that shift that created two impressions on the working die, and therefore creates these phenomenal looking chase pieces that you see here. This is one of the strongest doubled dies in the Lincoln Memorial Series, and this one, folks, sold for $642, and that's with 36 bids all around. A lot of activity. They do really well. This is a coin, folks, that in mid-state condition they typically sell for like $500 to $600. I mean, this is if this is like a car payment to a lot of people, or it can be 2 car payments to a lot of people. So it just gives you a little bit of a incentivized look at trying to do more hunting with Lincoln cents, because this is kind of like the king's search right here, and no other denomination compares. So we do have this older silver certificate. It's a $5 bill here. 1953 is the date. Looking at the front, it just looks like a well-weathered note, nothing too crazy. And you have to be careful, because if you don't look at both sides of the note, you're going to end up missing things like this. All right, a grossly misaligned reverse print. The front, perfectly registered, centered, everything like that. When you flip this thing over, it's like a cold, wet slap to the face. That's how dramatic it is. So this one right here ended up selling for $100. Okay, could have sold for a lot more, sure, but again, condition plays a huge role, even with errors and varieties. The nicer they are, the more money they're worth. But keep in mind, these will always have that floor, and for a dramatic misalignments like this, $100 seems to be that. All right, case in point, this is just a single clip 1970D Roosevelt dime. Again, comparing to a Lincoln cent or a nickel, those coins probably sell for $3 to $5. All right. The date is nothing too spectacular. It's got weird kind of like tone staining across all parts of the coin. This one ended up selling for $19.99. Now that is a buy it now, and they did put it up there. It might sit there for a while, for a couple weeks, a few days, a few months. But generally, if it's something that a collector wants, they will buy it. And I think it's reasonably priced. It's not like out of this world, like they're not asking $50 for it, because no clip sells for that. But if you observe this coin, it does have a really nice Blakesley effect right behind Roosevelt's head. And that's simply just a flattening of that particular edge that's opposite to where the clip is, because there's a little bit of a tilt to the coin when it's being struck. All right. So pretty cool. $20 bill. I'd take that all day long. Here's our next note, $1985 bill with what they call a gutter fold right there on the right side, going over the serial numbers and most of that second print. The sheet simply had a wrinkle, and it was printed over. Now let's look at the back here and see if that gutter shows there. And it doesn't. All right, so which means that at one point the wrinkle was stretched out, the reverse print was applied, which is normally the first print of a subject sheet. And this particular one sold for $37 with 13 bids. Gutter folds are generally kind of like the lower end of the totem pole in paper money errors. But the more gutters you find on a single note, the more they're worth. So they have kind of like a level up type of deal, depending on how dramatic they are. So this one's very cool. I actually sold one of these on Whatnot, graded Mid-State 64, John Adams, presidential dollar. Sure, not everybody's cup of tea. And it was this exact variety that I sold. And I ended up selling it for $17. It was a steal of a deal for someone that grabbed it, because this one ends up having the doubled edge lettering, and it's overlapping, much like the example I sold. So check this out, all right? The E pluribus unum and all the date, mint mark, and a bunch of stars are on that edge, and that's how they're designed, you know? So John Adams seems to be one of those particular presidents where you could find the double edged lettering like this. This one is a Philadelphia coin, 2007p. $123.50 with 14 bids is what this one ended up selling for. So that person that bought that $17 one for me, that's in much better shape. Wow, that's a hell of a rip right there. And this coin, you know, it can be hot, it can be cold, but it is one of the most dramatic things to come from the presidential dollar series. We also have this 1942D Lincoln wheat cent with a detached lamination piece on the reverse. So that's what that looks like. A piece of the coin is essentially flaked off. This one right here, not the worst example, but not the prettiest either. Sold for $20.49. There was a best offer that was accepted on this one. And then also here, we have also another lamination that appears to look like just a crack or a die crack that goes down the middle of the coin, as you see here. 1941 is the date. Keep in mind, these are very common in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, and maybe even earlier than that. Laminations are just simply a byproduct of impurities in the metal mix. All right, so of course, in the earlier days, they did add a little bit of tin and zinc to help out with the bonding of the metals. And, you know, it just didn't quite work out the way they wanted it to. And that's why they stopped it after like 1958 or whatever it is. And that's why you don't really see like woodies and then proper alloy mixes too much on dates beyond 1958. This one sold for $19.95. Again, that's more due to the dramatic nature of this bisecting lamination. One of the coolest, I actually ended up finding two of these here in the last like 3 months. One at a coin shop and one actually in circulation. 1970D Washington quarter. This one, as you can tell, has quite a bit of weakness in the strike. Okay, and that's one of the telltale signs of a quarter that was inadvertently struck on dime thickness stock. Now, the thickness between a quarter and a dime, you know, is quite glaring. All right, one is quite a bit thinner than the other. So, you know, they accidentally punched planchets out of a rolled thin sheet of dime stock, and quarters were made. And this is what it's going to look like. Now, you got to weigh them, all right, just to be sure. They generally fall in that 4 to 4.5 gram level. This one's 4.2, which is kind of like the standard weight that we see for these. And they are definitely underweight by about 2 grams, or about a gram, sorry. So this particular one right here sold for $83.95. I traditionally don't see these sell for under $50. Again, grade kind of plays a little bit of a thing here in determining the ultimate value of these. Nicer mid-state versions sell for hundreds of dollars. 1945p Silver War Nickel. The series that everybody loves to love and hate. You know, it's a kind of a two-way street here. These things suffered from just bad annealing processes. And because of that, you know, you did see a lot of laminations in the series. But sometimes you'll come across something like this, 1945, that has a pretty big strike through on the reverse. So there was something on the die before the coin was struck. Could be like a detached lamination piece from another coin. It could be a big gob of grease with debris. Like it gets really hard in there, and it'll do things like this. This particular one sold for $20.50 with 10 bids. Considering that you could cherry pick this for about $2, that's a heck of a flip right there. Again, that's kind of like what you want to find out there in at coin shops and melt bins and things like that. One of my favorites, I haven't seen one of these in quite a while, and boy, the seller was ballsy not to grade this one. A 1915 D over D repunch mint mark Buffalo nickel. This is a pretty big variety and a very rare one at that. You know, probably cherry picked from a local coin shop. You know, they would have spent $100 on this coin based off of its supposed about uncirculated condition. But, they did find something pretty big on here. And that repunch mint mark, I just, this is one of the craziest ones. I've never actually found this one. This is kind of like a bucket list find coin for me. That secondary Denver mint mark is punched north and east of the primary. It actually goes into the sea of cent there. So this one here, $904.11 was the sale price. Now, some of you are going to ask, well, was that worth it? These typically sell between $700, $800, $900, in this condition. And that's ungraded. Ungraded, Some people say, they'll quickly react and say, we got to grade it. But this is kind of like one of those cases where, it's just not necessary. If you can take good pictures, like these close-ups are killer. All right, if you can nail down close-ups like this, you're going to do really good. Here's another one, 1985D Roosevelt dime. We saw the first one earlier on a off-center struck dime. This one much better because it has a full readable date, and that's kind of like the key to big sales on these. This one's off-center by about 50%, pretty easy to see, and the price difference is huge. $65.69 was the sale price on this one. 1944D, Lincoln wheat cent. This is, again, not a pretty one. This thing looks like it's been cleaned or dipped or something, but it's a pretty big variety. And if you guys have been flipping through your Red Book price guides, which a lot of people do have, you're going to realize that this one is the D over S variety. See that little extra spike there on top of the D? That's actually the top curl of an S. You can see the inner curl of the S inside of the D as well. I found a few of these, and they're awesome. I will never give these up for the world because they are one of the first coins I fell in love with, as a younger teenager, like 13, 14 years old, just thumbing through an old copy of a Red Book price guide, from the early 90s. And I saw this. I'm like, one day I'm going to find that. And sure enough, decades later, I found 3 of them, I think. Sold one, kept the other 2. $87.55. Okay, considering that the coin's been cleaned or it's got like unnatural toning to it, yeah, that's a no-brainer sale right there. We haven't talked too much about Cud die breaks, but how about 1984 Lincoln Memorial Cent? Very cool. Nice large size Cud as a result of a piece of the die that had cracked and fallen off just due to wear and tear. This one right here sold for $70.87 with 13 bids. There was probably a good maybe 15 Cuds that was sold here in the last day. This is probably the best one for the last day or two. And of course, some of the craziest looking coins, can show up any time. This is a very large broad struck Jefferson nickel. It's very well centered, but it also has a little bit of a rim clip as well. If you can see there on top of Jefferson's head. And the center broad strikes that are this large are generally very desired, because it's going to be a coin that is going to be as big as a standard quarter size, but maybe even a little bit bigger than that. This one is a 1993 Philly, and it sold for $36.46 with 8 bids. I do have another one of these coming up here toward the end of the show that's going to blow your mind. Got a couple more pieces of paper here. 2003 dollar bill. Check out that shifted overprint. That's what we're looking at. So again, that's more of a byproduct of a misalignment, a shifted sheet of sorts before the overprint was applied there. And when we look at the back, perfectly centered. It's fine here. It had circulated for a while. You could tell from some of the folds and soiling. Very light, by the way. So this one sold for $117.29 with 24 bids. Great sale. And we also have a 1988 dollar bill with a full, it looks like a full 100% back to front wet ink transfer. Okay, so with these transfers, you got to make sure that the transfer is mirrored. It's backwards. So everything reads backwards, and this is a beauty. This is a high-end note right here. Back of the note is crisp, clean. I would say this is an uncirculated piece. So it's probably found out of a BU strap. It's just Not a BU strap, a CU strap, crisp uncirculated. There's different terminology here when it comes to uncirculated notes, 2 coins. And this one sold for $208.72 with 43 bids. So that's kind of like the median there, $200 for the full 100% wedding transfers. We also have, don't see them too much, but a raw, very, very legitimate example of a 1955 doubled die obverse. This one looks good. The fakes are generally very bad here on this one. This is the FS101. Now, it looks like the coin's been cleaned, so there is that. It's got a pretty big gash right over Lincoln's eye as well, so it's not the perfect coin. This one sold for $2,487.99. Again, these will always be a big money coin till the end of time. Here's a 1987p, a very small little cud right there at the bottom of Jefferson's bust, covering the area where you would see Felix Schleg's initials, okay, who is the designer of the coin. And this one right here does have some condition issues, some beat up rims on the reverse, and it's sold for $25. All right, so again, doing pretty well here in spite of the details damage on the coin. 1965 Washington quarter. Now we gotta be careful here. This is that kind of like let's talk about it and just be aware that this will fool a lot of people. Now the seller had mentioned that this is a reverse retain cud. You can see it over the word Liberty. It kind of looks like it, but when you look at the total coin and you look at the front, okay, you guys see what I'm talking about there. When you look at the front of the coin, look where In God We Trust is. See how there's some distortion of the metal of the coin right there? So what this is that this coin probably took a massive hit. A big old rim hit that actually bent the coin a little bit. That gives it the false look of a cud on the reverse. Now this probably happened a long time ago and the coin just simply recirculated. Okay, and this is kind of where people get trapped. Is that they'll look at this and think, oh man, that's a pretty nice legitimate retained cud. All right, a coin that customarily probably sells for $50 or so and higher. But we have to look at the total picture when we're diagnosing errors, okay? Just to make sure that we rule everything out before we say, yes, this is indeed a true blue cud die break. So this one sold for $47 as a buy it now. Unfortunately, hopefully that this one gets resolved because this one does not need to be out there as a legitimate error, and better luck next time is all I could say. So we do have a legitimate cud die break. We've seen this same one quite a bit of times over the last year on a 74D Lincoln Memorial Cent. The cud is right over the word trust, or at least the last letter of trust. And this particular one right here is still doing okay. It's sold for $22. They're quite minor, and I think someone had found a whole bunch of these in a mint bag or something, which flooded the market. So a coin that normally probably would sell for $30, $40, they've been kind of depressed down to a $20 level because of the amount of them that are out there. There were actually two that sold within minutes of each other. The other one sold for $20. And 1967 Roosevelt dime. This one has two clips on there. All right, it's kind of different. It looks like it has three, but I think that's more of a Blakesley effect underneath the date. This one sold for $19.99. Again, this one sold for about 2x what a Lincoln cent would with two clips on there. And here's our other big mama broad strike. And this is a marvel to see when you have a coin that's a copper-coated zinc-in. All right, so anything post-1982. And the big reason why is that when broad strikes occur on these particular coins of this composition, the copper plating actually splits. All right, so this one, it has a really gnarly looking doubled profile, but that's normal on these, all right, because the copper plating is so razor thin that it doesn't take much to fracture and eventually spread out to expose some of that zinc core. This one, very nice large centered broad strike, sold for $46 with 4 bids. So if you do come across something like this, these are pretty big. And broad strikes, they can be uncentered. They're a little bit less desirable. The big centered ones typically command a huge premium. But there's your side-by-side view showing just how much bigger one is over the other. And a funny story, candy half-dollar off-center coins had boomed here in the last few years. They're not cheap anymore. I actually knew a dealer in the San Francisco Bay Area. This is like 10 years ago, back when we were still living there. He had probably, if he had a double row box of coins, approximately 25% of this double row box, so like half of one row, was filled with Kennedy, Ike Dollar, and Susan B. Anthony off-center strikes. And he was selling them for like 20 to 30 bucks a piece. I wish I had a crystal ball to be able to buy every single one of them, because they're worth like 3 to 5x what they were back in the day. This one right here, 1990p, actually a very beautiful one. And this is kind of like the type that I saw in that dealer box. And it still, to this day, haunts my dreams. Every time I see one of these sell raw and ungraded, it kind of makes me a little sick to my stomach. Like I could have had quite a bit of a nice windfall there. So this one right here, off center by about 10-12%, pretty nice. This one sold for $100, and that's kind of like the regular price for these. The bigger the coin, the more desirable they are, because you just don't see a lot of these type of errors on those bigger coins. And then finally, a non-traditional date of off-center struck Lincoln cent. This one even has a little partial tilted collar on the reverse. 20 AD. Man, we just don't see these that often. This is a really nice one. I couldn't get what the best offer price was, but the original price was $99.99. A few little scrapes on the reverse there. Nothing too crazy, but I'm sure this one's needed in an off-center date set. Probably sold for 70, 80 bucks if I had to guess. Would not be surprised if it went for 90 because of how scarce this date is, but I thought I'd throw this one in. Pretty nice one. All right, we've come to the end. Videos for entertainment purposes only. Information provided. It's not financial advice, the usual. Please do grade and collect responsibly if you're going to be grading. But that's it, guys. I'm your host, Sean, with Blue Ridge Silverhound. Another PCMR in the books. That was a lot of fun. I hope you guys had fun, too, and you're ready to aspire to go out there and find some of these, because again, there's coin shows up to yin yang all across the nation, and the brand new stuff, the new coins, are currently at the banks, so I would take advantage of that any way that I can. That's it. I'm out of here. You guys take care. Happy hunting, and I'll see you on the next coin video. So long.